How y'all doing? Today I'm taking a look at this guy. This is a Tac Ray knife, one of maybe 3 or 4 that they make, but I can't really get information one way or the other whether or not this is the only one that they've officially made. Or yeah, I don't. Like I said, I've seen a couple other models, one of them alluded to on their website, and then one of them that I can find on Amazon that they have no mentions anywhere else on the internet from, so I don't know if that's a company ripping them off or what. Strange, but okay. So this company is called Tac Ray, and they are a little bit known in the industry, in the manufacturing industry, more or less. They've been known for manufacturing, especially titanium hardware, screws and things like that, for other companies to purchase them up and do that sort of stuff. And so that makes sense as to why they ended up making a titanium frame lock for a knife. This is the purple version, but of course, if you don't like the fruity colors, it also does come in just standard gray. This is basically how it comes. You got a little slip over this this pouch thing. Really, really plush, but I mean the outer thing is basically we got little nylon stitching, and then we have what looks like a carbon fiber appearance of nylon sheets in there. And we got some Velcro, and then it's super nice and microfiber on the inside here. The only other thing that came in there is a little card, which I honestly don't even know if that's if that URL still works or if it's a shortcut or something like that. Because if you try to go to their Amazon store, you end up with, you know, Amazon.com/shop/million numbers like almost everybody else does. But still, so it doesn't actually come with a box, but it does come in some nice packaging. This guy, as you can see here, has a fairly large and, well, kind of trapezoidal hole going on. And, you know, you can thumb roll that out. You do have to be careful. This is a frame lock, so if you do hold the knife a bit wrong, then trying to do that thumb roll out can be a little difficult. But, I mean, you can also reverse flick it, which I'm pretty sure almost everybody is going to do who actually gets this thing here. As you can see, we got a sheep's footy kind of knife here. It does have just a little tiny bit of belly to it. Whether or not it might show up on the camera, I can actually show that off here in just a moment. Yeah, this does give off some serious Liong Mah KUF or kitchen utility folder kind of vibes. Nothing like it necessarily in the actual design, but you know, in execution, they both kind of can serve that same purpose there. The Amazon listing does say that you know, very interesting non-slip grip, but this is a titanium frame lock, so I guess, you know, you have the stepped milling going on at the very bottom. But, I mean, if you're familiar with using titanium frame locks in general, unless they got some really incredible kind of texturing going on, as soon as you get these things just a little bit wet, most of that non-slip stuff goes out the window, because it does require friction from, you know, not having liquid and things like that going on. If you are familiar with Neeves Knives, this is basically the same OEM that does their sort of stuff. It does have a model number of DT-03. The DT-01, 02, I don't know, they don't exist as far as I can tell. Yeah, let's see. This has a VG10 blade, so that's kind of nice. Stonewash finish going on it. So that'll hide some scratches and things of that nature. I do have a couple of things about this that I'm either a little bit confused on or wish would be just a little bit different here. First of all, lockbar access. We don't have any at all on that side, and I suppose that's probably for trying to keep it a little bit more comfortable for your fingers when you're trying to do some chopping down onto a surface, most likely a cutting board. But they have these scallops, but they're fairly shallow and really, really long. And the lock bar, of course, comes up. You can see this thing has, oh, I don't know, I would probably say between 50 and 60% lockup. And it closes further as it gets up there. So this thing is actually pretty difficult for me to get my thumb in there. It's more difficult than most other frame locks that I've ended up dealing with. And if your thumb is a little bit wet or something like that, you don't have any other texture, so that's probably going to be a little bit more difficult for you to deal with. The next thing here is it has kind of a late detent. And that might not look incredibly late, but for me, with the way that this knife performs, I would much rather have a very, very early detent engagement. And that's because I can see, you want to make sure that you're not getting your thumb with it. However, this thing is on bearings, and ceramic bearings at that. But no matter what I've tried to do, this thing is not going to be a drop shut or, even really a wiggle shut sort of situation. You can get over that detent and, even doing a snap doesn't really fully close all that fast. So because of that, I don't really have any worries of that blade ever coming down onto my hand. So if that's the case, and because this detent, when you hit it, it's actually fairly difficult to get over that because it doesn't have a detent ramp, and the little detent in there, in that lock bar, sticks up a little bit more than it probably does on a lot of other folders. So for me, I would kind of appreciate an earlier lockup for this kind of design and action. And the other thing that's just kind of strange to me is this screw here and this screw here, as we can probably see if I pull up another light source. Yeah, you can see they do nothing. They literally just screw through the titanium. They don't hold anything on. I think it's, I don't know, it's partially trying to mimic the back portion here, but that has a lanyard hole cut out on the back side of it. I don't know. That's just kind of strange to me. And I mean, usually in manufacturing, the less amount of screws that you can get away with when manufacturing something, the cheaper that manufacturing cost is going to be. So the aesthetics of that, sure, why not? But it does kind of seem strange that it's just superfluous there. Since this one is the purple anodized one, we have an anodized backspacer and clip. Might not necessarily look like it on the camera. I'm not quite sure exactly what the colors are going to do, but these are kind of anodized gold to go along with the purple. But, of course, the standard version is just gray all the way around. This thing doesn't have any weight relieving going on the inside. And we have some fairly thick titanium, like I could imagine. And we do have, I guess, just a little bit of, milling on the outside of it to help with that. And of course, I do like the stepped lock bar relief sort of things. I usually do like that look. So no complaints necessarily there. Oh yes, the blade I was talking about does have a little bit of a belly to it. It's just a cutting board, and basically you would want to hold it something like that, kind of a pinch grip, but you can see obviously my hands are or my fingers are fairly large, but I do have knuckle clearance to be able to get that down there. And yeah, you can see we do have a little bit of a back and forth rocking motion that we can get there. So it does have a little bit of a belly. which is definitely helpful if you're going through, I don't know, herbs and other stuff like that that you actually want to rock and, not really lift your blade up too high for it. One other thing that I did notice while trying to deal with this is that plunge grind is really at a strange angle there. You have to try really difficult, or you have to try quite a bit because it is difficult to sharpen this thing without marring the titanium scales or anything like that. I ended up actually disassembling it, clamping the blade in, doing the sharpening, and then putting it all back together so I could avoid most of that. So that might be a little bit more difficult for you. You have to hold it at a pretty crazy angle if you are trying to sharpen on a stone and you don't want to actually hit those scales. Just something to keep in mind if you do plan on getting this thing and trying to sharpen it up. So, all right, we got that out of the way. The other thing I wanted to do here is bring out another knife. Basically, this was something that I was thinking might be kind of interesting and something I can try to replace something that I use a bit in the kitchen. And that is this guy, which, with the exception of the wharncliffe 511, is the cheapest knife I own. Yet, probably the one that I've used more than everything else because I use it for a lot of really quick tasks. This is a Messermeister Pro Touch. It's just a little Santoku. They say 4.5 inches, but it's not. It's under 4.25 inches for sure. And of course that does include the bolster and a little bit there. So yeah, and as we can see, this thing is just a little bit longer as far as the actual blade cutting length on it. This thing is like a $10 knife. Says stainless Taiwan. I actually do know what the steel is in it though. It's not just stainless. It's AISI 420. If you're not familiar with that, it does have some other analogs to it, including 420J1. Some people who are really familiar with 420 steels will probably recognize 420J2. That's the stuff that a lot of Mall Ninja swords and other weapons are manufactured out of, and some interchangeable hunting and fillet blades will actually use 420J2 as well. I think Cold Steel's interchangeable hunting knife uses 420J2 for their blades there. But this is 420J1, and that basically changes the properties just a little tiny bit, adds more corrosion resistance, even though 420J2 was already really high. But what a lot of folks use these for, and what I use this thing for quite a bit myself, is uses in the bar. So, citrus, lemons, limes, grapefruits, I don't know, whatever you want to actually try to make a gin and tonic with, And this thing just does a fantastic job with that. This thing can also break down apples really quickly. The geometry on it is pretty much fantastic there with this little saber grind here. I had just recently sharpened this thing back up because it was starting to go out a little bit. But yeah, on an apple, you can cut that straight up into 4. You can wedge that down underneath, cut into the apple towards the center so you get underneath the core. Once you're halfway through, you can just twist it and the other side pops out. This thing is amazing. But you can also, take it to work to do all those sort of things in the office. Comes in all sorts of fruity colors. This one's red, but I don't know, they got grape and orange and cherry flavors and all that other shit. So, it doesn't look intimidating, even in the lunchroom, but works great for taking down all sorts of fruit. And also, any kind of a sandwich tasks, cutting all that stuff up. But yeah, I use that a lot for the wet bar down here. And this is basically what I was kind of thinking I could try to use this for. And I'm still going to try a little bit. but I do have a feeling that it's not going to be for me. And that's nothing as a knock on this particular knife, because I do think that even if I had a Liong Mah KUF or a Spidey Chef, I would have the same problem with it. It's kind of the fact of, well, they're titanium handles, and so they do get a little bit unwieldy if your hand gets a little bit wet or something like that. And especially with citrus and stuff like that, and using higher carbon steels, like, well, this is VG10, but, well, I guess the cuff is, there's less concern over the cuff and the Spidey Chef, because that uses the M390 and the other rust-proof steel that's not the H series, that just LC200N. There we go. So those are going to worry me just a little bit less, but still, when you get citrus juice and it can get inside a pivot or something like that, that means that you're going to need to rinse that out. Otherwise, you're going to have acidic liquid that sits on a knife for an extended period of time. So you're going to end up developing rust on almost anything. So that means you're going to have to rinse it out from time to time. And doing that will, of course, rob all of the lubricity that you might add to the table there. So I guess in that particular way, if you do want to use something like this for those tasks, you might want to just use food-grade mineral oil rather than some standard knife lube or something like that. Something that's, you know, food safe and all that sort of stuff, and you probably won't be sad when it gets all rinsed away. So, this thing does not have any skeletonization going on the inside of it. I did take this thing apart in the previous version, because that one was just way too damn long. But there's absolutely nothing interesting in there. It's got little steel washers in the bottom of it that the ceramic bearings and brass cages right along. But no matter what I end up doing with this thing, I really can't tune it to not feel like it's just basically running on washers. Which, hey, that's fine, but I suppose if they did that, they might as well have used washers. I don't know. Something that would probably end up breaking in just a little bit better over time. But I don't know what the measurements are for this thing off the top of my head. This thing isn't super crazy light, because it doesn't have any weight relieving going on the inside. That being said, I think it's right around 4 ounces, so not super duper heavy. Yeah, 4.02 ounces, or basically 114 grams, which I think they could have easily gotten this under 100 grams if they did some of that weight relieving on the inside. But that's maybe just me being used to, you know, titanium frame locks from some other companies that end up doing things a little bit differently and different pricing, you know, Tucson and all that sort of stuff. So, okay, yeah, I wanted to do the other measurements. Ah, here we go. Figured I'd had my calipalulus somewhere around here. And we basically have 3.6 inches, but that's basically from the top here over to here. But as you can see, we still have basically a third to a half an inch of extra cutting length there. So we probably have about 4 inches of cutting length on there. Of course, that part there, that's going to be useful for, I don't know, herbs, or really just kind of hacking through something. Or, you know, doing an EDC kind of a slicing task. But if you're trying to run into food or anything like that, yeah, it's not going to actually go through that. So keep that in mind there. Oops. That basically equals out to 91.6 millimeters. That way I don't have to stretch that thing back out. Since I forgot to change that. And then, yeah, we basically have 0.475 right around there. I'll move it back. That's close enough. But yeah, 0.475 of an inch. So thinner than a PM2, so that works out pretty nice. And that equals basically just a hair over 12.1 millimeters. And since I'm on millimeters, let's go ahead and check the blade stock on this. And it is basically 3.2 millimeters. Which is pretty good. You know, you might want to see something maybe just a little bit thinner, like 2.6 millimeters or something like that, for something that's done mostly for kitchen tasks, something that would look a little bit more like that. However, to get around that, this does have a bit of a distal taper to it. If you're not familiar with that and what that is, that basically means that from this point here, thins out towards the blade, but it also thins out towards the tip, as you can see here. So much, much thinner at the tip than it is back here. And that basically changes that profile. So the front half of it is going to be even more slicey than that back half, which you would probably use for chopping and stuff like that. So they do get around it a little bit like that, and that does help with you know, just standard stability, especially if you're going to be trying to force this thing through some of those harder vegetables. You know, sweet potatoes are notorious for being difficult to actually muscle something through. Jicama. I don't know, any of the other root vegetables, and turnips and beets and whatever else. Those can be pretty difficult for something to get through, and that can help mitigate that. But yeah, this ain't a bad little knife overall, and definitely affordable for basically a titanium frame lock for with VG10 steel for under $100. Like I said, I think these things go for about 80. I might be wrong on that, and it's 90, but I think it was 80 that I ended up getting them for. Maybe it's because they had a coupon or something like that that's applicable at the moment. But still, pretty interesting knife. I am definitely not sad that I picked it up. And I guess time will see, but I do kind of have my doubts as to whether or not it will usurp my my trusty Messermeister Pro Touch for just doing a lot of bar and other really quick kitchen tasks. But that's basically everything I had to say about it. Just interesting. Don't necessarily know of a designer. I think it's just an in-house design or something like that. But still works out all right. The thumb hole shape really kind of strange, but you know, it doesn't have any detriments to it. This is large enough that you can really shove your finger all the way through there. Generally, I don't, because, well, my nails are almost always way too weak, and I can end up cracking or delaminating them and stuff like that. So usually for knives, I end up using the pad before my fingernail to do any of that sort of stuff. But that's me. You know, if you have those adamantium claws, like it seems like almost everybody but me has, then by all means, you can go ahead and do any of those things. Works out super great and feels nice too. So yeah, I will stop rambling on now. This was just an interesting knife that Jared Neeves had brought to my attention in one of his more recent videos. And went on to Amazon to pick it up, and, well, it's on Prime, so I got it a few days later, and I've been rather interested in it. But, all right, as always, I appreciate y'all for watching, and have yourself a wonderful rest of your day, yo. And subscribe, maybe.